In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NBA games happening on April 12, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Golden State Warriors versus Los Angeles Clippers. There's something poetic about this one, folks, and I mean that sincerely. The Golden State Warriors roll into Inglewood tonight to close out the regular season against the Los Angeles Clippers at the Intuit Dome, and on paper this looks like your standard end-of-year throwaway game between two squads that already know where they stand in the Western Conference. But peel the layers back and you realize this is anything but throwaway. These two clubs are staring down the barrel of the play-in tournament, and there's a very real chance they face each other again in a win-or-go-home elimination game just 3 days from now. That context, that tension, that strategic chess match hovering over everything tonight, it matters more than most people realize. Golden State comes in at 37-44, locked into the 10th seed in the West. The Clippers sit at 41-40, holding down a spot around 8th or 9th depending on how tonight shakes out around the league. So you've got one team that's been clawing and scraping just to stay relevant, and another team that authored one of the most unbelievable turnaround seasons in recent NBA history. Honestly, the Clippers' story this year deserves its own documentary. They started the season 6-21, dead last in vibes, dead last in morale, very nearly dead last in the conference. The franchise was dealing with Bradley Beal's season-ending hip injury barely 10 games in, Chris Paul getting sent home after conflicts with coaches and teammates before eventually being shipped off to the Toronto Raptors, and a general sense that the whole experiment was crumbling. Then something clicked. They ripped off 16 wins in a span of 19 games and became the first team in NBA history to climb above the .500 mark after being 15 games below it. Let that sink in for a second, because that's not just a stat, that's a mindset, that's a locker room that figured something out when nobody was watching. The engine behind all of it has been Kawhi Leonard doing what Kawhi Leonard does when he's healthy and locked in. The man is averaging roughly 28 points per game this season, which slots him around 6th in the entire league. He's paired that with over 6 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, and 2 steals a night. There was a stretch where he scored 20 or more points in 49 consecutive games, the longest single-season streak in franchise history. When Kawhi is cooking like this, you don't just have a good player on your hands. You have a problem that opposing defenses genuinely cannot solve. And now he's got Darius Garland running the point beside him. Garland came over from Cleveland at the trade deadline in exchange for James Harden, and he's been nothing short of sensational since arriving in Los Angeles. In his time with the Clippers, Garland has been shooting north of 50% from the field and over 51% from three-point range while averaging over 21 points a game. That is an absurd level of shooting efficiency from a point guard who can also distribute the ball at an elite level with nearly 7 assists per game. You pair that kind of backcourt creation with a front court that features Brook Lopez's rim protection and John Collins's energy, and you've got a roster that can hurt you in a lot of ways. Now flip to the Warriors' side and the picture looks, well, rough. Stephen Curry missed roughly 2 months with a knee injury this season, and he's only played a handful of games since returning. He tweaked his right ankle during Friday's loss to the Sacramento Kings, and he's listed as questionable for tonight, though head coach Steve Kerr expects him to suit up. But here's the thing, even if Curry plays, he's been on a minutes restriction. He logged 27 minutes against Sacramento and is targeting somewhere around 32 to 34 tonight, which he himself called my normal minutes. That sounds fine until you realize he's still working himself back into game shape after sitting out since late January. His shot hasn't been falling consistently either, going 3 for 8 from the field and 2 for 6 from deep in that Kings loss. And Curry's situation is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Golden State's health. Jimmy Butler is done for the year with a knee injury. Moses Moody is done for the year with a torn patellar tendon. Draymond Green is questionable tonight with a low back issue. Quinton Post is out with a foot problem. L.J. Cryer is out with an ankle sprain. Seth Curry is sidelined with an adductor injury. Kristaps Porzingis, the big man they acquired at the trade deadline, has been in and out of the lineup with knee and illness concerns all month. Al Horford just returned from a 14-game absence due to a calf injury and is playing on restricted minutes himself. You're looking at a roster that is being held together with duct tape and sheer willpower, and that's not an exaggeration. Kerr himself said something really telling after the Kings game. He acknowledged that while he wants Curry to play tonight to build rhythm, the Warriors won't want to show much to the Clippers before a potential play-in elimination game on Wednesday. Think about what that means. If you're Golden State, you're essentially treating this as a glorified scrimmage, a chance to get some reps in without tipping your hand. Meanwhile, the Clippers are playing in front of their home crowd at the Intuit Dome, and anyone who has watched basketball this season knows that building is a legitimate fortress. The wall, that steep 51-row fan section behind the basket, has made life miserable for opposing teams all year. Road teams have shot worse from both the free throw line and three-point range at the Intuit Dome than nearly any other arena in the league. It's a real, tangible competitive advantage. The head-to-head history between these two is absolutely brutal for the Warriors, and I don't say that lightly. The Clippers have won 9 of the last 10 meetings between these two teams. They've taken 2 of 3 matchups this season, including a 103-102 nail-biter at the Intuit Dome and a convincing 114-101 victory up at Chase Center. Golden State has been 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 games against the Clippers. They're 0-8 straight up in their last 8 road games against Los Angeles. The Warriors are also just 4-9 against the spread in their last 13 games overall, and 1-5 in their last 6 on the road. There is a pattern here, and it is not a kind one for Golden State. So let's put this all together. You've got a Clippers team with a two-way superstar in Kawhi firing on all cylinders, a newly acquired floor general in Garland who has been scorching the Nets, a defense that ranks 10th in the league in points allowed per game, home court advantage in one of the most intimidating buildings in professional sports, and a seasoned narrative of resilience that has this franchise playing with a massive chip on its shoulder. On the other side, you've got a Warriors team missing multiple rotation players, starting a franchise icon who's been back for barely a week and is playing on a minutes cap, a head coach openly admitting they're holding things back strategically, and a recent track record against this opponent that can only be described as dismal. The Clippers have been playing with more fight, more purpose, and more cohesion than a team in this position has any right to play with. History tells us they own this matchup, and tonight's circumstances only amplify that advantage. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Clippers to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The first thing that jumps out when you start thinking about the scoring environment in this one is the pace. The Clippers have played at the 3rd slowest pace in the entire NBA this season. That's not an accident. That's not a byproduct of bad offense. It is by design. Tyronn Lue wants his team operating in the half court, letting Kawhi Leonard go to work in isolation sets, running pick and rolls through Garland, and making opponents grind through their defensive structure possession by possession. When you play that slowly, there are simply fewer possessions in a game. Fewer possessions mean fewer opportunities to score for both sides. It's basic math dressed up in basketball strategy, and it's been a consistent feature of Clippers games all year. Now layer on top of that what the Warriors are likely to do tonight. Curry is on a minutes restriction. Green might not even play. Kerr has openly said they're not going to reveal their playbook before a potential play-in showdown with this same team. When a squad is in preservation mode like that, the effort level on the offensive end tends to dip. You don't see the secondary actions, the extra passes, the aggressive drives to the rim that generate and won opportunities and trips to the free throw line. You see guys going through the motions, getting their legs under them, and being careful not to aggravate nagging injuries 3 days before the most important game of their season. That is not a recipe for a shootout. The defensive numbers reinforce this. The Clippers allow just 112.7 points per game, good for 10th in the league. That's a team built to suffocate opponents in the half court, particularly with Leonard's individual defensive prowess and the way Derrick Jones Jr. and Nicholas Batum can switch across multiple positions on the perimeter. When visitors step into the Intuit Dome, shooting percentages historically drop even further thanks to the arena's unique design and the intensity of the crowd behind the wall. There's a reason road teams have struggled to hit free throws and threes in that building. Look at the recent trends and you'll see how loudly the data is speaking. The total has gone under in 6 of the Clippers' last 7 games against the Warriors. 6 out of 7. The under has also hit in 6 of the Clippers' last 9 games overall. It's hit in 4 of their last 5 home games. And it's come in for 4 of the Warriors' last 6 games played on a Sunday. When these two specific teams get together, the scoring environment just shrinks. The Clippers want to play slow, and the Warriors, at least tonight, have every reason to match that tempo. You've got a team that controls the pace on one side and a team with limited offensive firepower and no incentive to push the ball on the other. There's also the strategic chess match hovering over everything. If these teams are going to see each other again on Wednesday in a do-or-die play-in game, neither coaching staff wants to show their hand tonight. That means vanilla offensive sets, conservative rotations, and a general reluctance to get into shootout territory. Kerr is too smart to let this game become a track meet. Lue has no reason to deviate from the deliberate half-court style that has fueled this historic turnaround. When both coaches are incentivized to keep things buttoned up, when one team plays at a snail's pace by design, when the head-to-head history between these clubs keeps producing lower-scoring affairs, and when both rosters have reasons to hold something back, the path forward feels pretty clear. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Denver Nuggets versus San Antonio Spurs. The regular season finale in San Antonio features a matchup between two of the most dangerous teams in the Western Conference, and honestly, the storyline surrounding this game might be more fascinating than the game itself. The Spurs sit at 62-19, locked in as the second seed out west, while the visiting squad rolls in at 53-28, carrying an 11-game winning streak, the longest of the entire Nikola Jokic era in Denver. Now, if you glance at the injury report and see a laundry list of names sitting out for the road team, your first instinct is probably to fade them completely. That would be a mistake. Here's the thing, when you peel back the layers of what's actually happening, you realize both teams are managing rest and load heading into the playoffs. The Spurs have Victor Wembanyama, Stephen Castle, and Devin Vassell all listed as questionable, with Luke Kornet already ruled out. Wembanyama already hit his 65-game minimum for award eligibility against Dallas, and he openly acknowledged he wouldn't be surprised if he sat this one out. On the Denver side, yes, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, Cameron Johnson, and Tim Hardaway Jr. are all resting, but the books clearly know that because the spread in this game is razor thin. The market isn't handing out free money here, and that tiny number tells you something important. The odds makers expect this to be a coin flip type of game no matter who's on the floor. And if you watched what Denver's bench unit did just 2 nights ago against Oklahoma City, you saw something that should make you pause before writing off the road team. Jonas Valanciunas went for 23 points and 17 rebounds, both season highs. Julian Strawther poured in 22. David Roddy erupted for a season-high 21. Bruce Brown added 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. That's not a tank job lineup. That's a group of guys who smell playoff minutes and are playing with nothing to lose. Denver's second unit outscored OKC's bench crew 127-107, and the game wasn't even that close in the fourth quarter when Roddy went nuclear and sparked a 21-5 run. And there's one more wrinkle that could change everything. Jokic is listed as questionable with right wrist injury management, but the real reason he's likely to suit up is the 65-game rule. He needs to log at least 15 minutes in this game to qualify for end-of-season awards, and considering he's a legitimate MVP candidate averaging 27.8 points, 12.9 rebounds, and 10.9 assists on the year, Denver isn't going to let a technicality strip him of that recognition. Even 15 minutes of Jokic is a cheat code. Think about what he did just 8 days ago against this exact Spurs team. 40 points, 13 assists, and 8 rebounds in a comeback overtime win. He dominated the final 14 minutes of that game so thoroughly that Wembanyama went 1 for 4 in the closing stretch. You give a man like that even a quarter and a half of playing time, and the gravity of his presence alone warps the entire game. Denver also has a genuine motivational edge that people are overlooking. If the Nuggets win and the Lakers lose, Denver locks in the 3rd seed and avoids what could be a brutal second-round collision with Oklahoma City. Coach David Adelman said before the OKC game that you have to make decisions best for your team, and if Denver sees any strategic advantage in winning, Jokic could play well beyond the minimum 15. The culture of this winning streak matters too. 11 straight wins. That doesn't happen by accident. It's the kind of momentum that seeps into the DNA of a roster, where even the guys at the end of the bench start believing they belong. And here's what a lot of people forget. Denver leads this season series 2-1, with both wins coming in absolute barn burners decided by 2 points or less. They rallied from 13 down in the fourth quarter to beat San Antonio back on March 12th. They erased another double-digit deficit to win in overtime on April 4th. This roster, top to bottom, does not quit against the Spurs. If San Antonio rests its stars, this becomes a battle between two deep benches, and Denver just proved against the number 1 seed that their bench can flat out win a game. As our first pick for this matchup, the Denver Nuggets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. These two teams have spent the entire 2025-26 season treating the scoreboard like a suggestion rather than a limit, and their head-to-head matchups have been the most electric games on the NBA calendar. Denver leads the entire league in scoring at 121.4 points per game. San Antonio ranks third at 119.6. When you put those two offenses on the same floor, something borderline absurd happens every single time. Their 3 meetings this season produced combined scores of 275, 267, and 270. That's an average of 270 total points per game between these two clubs. Let that sink in for a second, because the projected total for this contest sits well below any of those 3 numbers. Even the low-scoring affair in this series was 267 combined. Denver shoots 49.5% from the field, second in the NBA, and connects at a blistering 39.5% from 3, which leads the league. The Spurs aren't far behind at 48.3% from the floor, fourth in the NBA. Now, you might be thinking that with so many starters potentially resting, the scoring could dry up. I get that logic, but watch what actually happens in these end-of-season rest games. The bench players aren't trying to slow it down and grind out possessions. They're doing the opposite. They're pushing pace, taking shots in transition, and playing with a freedom that starters rarely show because there's no coach screaming about shot selection when the game doesn't count in the standings. Denver's bench unit just put up 127 against Oklahoma City 2 nights ago. Valanciunas looked like he was 27 again, attacking the glass with a ferocity that made you wonder why he's been riding the pine. Strother and Roddy combined for 43 points, and they did it in style, pulling up from deep, attacking the rim, playing with a swagger that screams "give me more minutes in the playoffs." On the San Antonio side, this is a team that could make NBA history in this game. If Harrison Barnes scores 17 points, the Spurs become the first team ever to finish a season with 8 players averaging double-figure scoring. That tells you everything about how deep this roster runs. De'Aaron Fox, who averages 18.5 points on the year, has shown a tendency to crank up his scoring even further when Wembanyama sits. Coach Mitch Johnson called Fox the most capable player on the team at understanding the pulse of the game, and when Wemby is out, Fox kicks it into overdrive. Then you've got Dylan Harper, the second overall pick who's been cooking lately, 17 points per game across his 2 starts this season while shooting over 50% from the floor. Julian Champagnie knocks down 2.4 threes per game. Keldon Johnson chips in 13.1 a night. Devin Vassell, if he plays, provides another bucket getter. Both benches are loaded, both teams play at a pace that invites high scoring, and neither side has any reason to tighten up defensively in a regular season finale. Road games for Denver have gone to the over 70% of the time this season, which is one of the highest clips in the league. The Nuggets games overall have cleared the total 63% of the time across 81 contests with a set line. Every single measurable trend between these two teams, the season series totals, the pace metrics, the offensive efficiency numbers, the over rates, all of it screams the same thing. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Sacramento Kings versus Portland Trail Blazers. There's something almost poetic about what's happening here tonight, and if you've been paying attention to this league all season, you already feel it. You've got a team that's been buried in the standings since February, already eliminated, already going through the motions, rolling into the building of a team that's fighting tooth and nail for its postseason life. Portland sits at 41-40, right in the thick of the Western Conference play-in race. And honestly, the way they've been playing at the Moda Center lately has been nothing short of impressive. 6 wins in their last 7 home contests. That's not a team coasting. Sacramento, meanwhile, limps in at 22-59, a franchise that was mathematically eliminated from playoff contention all the way back on March 11th. Let that marinate for a second. The Kings have had over a month of essentially meaningless basketball, and the wear and tear of playing out a lost season shows up in ways that don't always jump off the stat sheet. And it gets worse, much worse, when you look at who's actually available to suit up for Sacramento tonight. Their injury report reads like a disaster movie cast list right now, with 8 players on it. Domantas Sabonis is done for the year with a back injury. Zach LaVine shelved for the season with a finger issue. DeAndre Hunter gone for the year. Drew Eubanks, same story. Keegan Murray is out with an ankle problem. Malik Monk is away from the team for personal reasons. And Russell Westbrook is sidelined with a foot injury. Here's the kicker though, DeMar DeRozan, the one remaining veteran anchor who's been carrying this offense at 18.4 points per game, is listed as day-to-day with a hamstring concern heading into tonight. You just can't lose that many pieces and expect to be competitive in any setting, let alone on the road against a team with something real to play for. Even if DeRozan guts it out and plays, think about what this roster is working with. Sacramento has been outscored by an average of 10 points per game on the season. They rank 28th in scoring, putting up just 111 per contest, and their defense isn't exactly riding to the rescue either, surrendering 121 per game, which ranks 27th. This is also a team that endured a franchise record 16-game losing streak stretching from January into February, and honestly, the damage from that skid never fully healed. Now flip the lens to Portland and the contrast is almost absurd. Deni Avdija earned his first All-Star nod this season and has been carrying this team with 24.2 points per game, 14th in the entire NBA. 2 nights ago against the Clippers, he poured in 35 points in a dominant home victory. And he looked like a guy who knows exactly what's at stake right now. That's a player on a mission heading into the postseason. Standing next to him in the paint is Donovan Clingan, who has been absolutely monstrous on the glass, grabbing 11.6 rebounds per game, 3rd best in the league, while also protecting the rim at 1.7 blocks per game, which ranks 4th. Drew Holiday, the steady veteran hand, keeps delivering 16.2 points and 6.1 assists. And Too Many Camara has quietly turned into one of the most reliable three-point threats on the roster, connecting on 2.7 threes per contest, 19th in the NBA. And here's a development that should worry Sacramento even more. Shaedon Sharpe just returned from a 26-game absence in Friday's win over the Clippers, giving Portland another dynamic backcourt weapon at the exact right time. Yes, the Blazers are missing Damian Lillard for the rest of the year with an Achilles injury, and Jeremy Grant is also sidelined with a calf strain. But even without those two, this team keeps finding ways to win, and that tells you something about the culture that interim head coach Tiago Splitter has built here. Portland has taken 75% of their games as favorites this season, going 27 of 36. They own Sacramento at the Moda Center historically, winning 16 of their last 20 home meetings against the Kings. The only matchup between these two this season was a wild 134-133 overtime affair back on December 18th, a contest Portland won on Avdija's clutch free throws with 1.5 seconds left. But here's the important context, that Sacramento team still had Sabonis, LaVine, and several other key contributors on the court. This version of the Kings is a completely different animal. You're looking at a skeleton crew going up against a nearly full-strength squad with everything to play for. The motivation gap alone tells you everything you need to know. Portland is playing their final regular season game, their last shot at building confidence and seeding position before the play-in tournament begins. Sacramento is playing for nothing except getting through the schedule and heading into the off-season. When you stack the talent disparity, the absolute carnage on Sacramento's injury report, Portland's home court dominance in this series, and the Blazers riding a wave of momentum at the Moda Center, this has all the ingredients of a game that gets ugly early and stays that way. As our first pick for this matchup, the Portland Trail Blazers to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. There's a trend building around Portland right now that isn't getting nearly enough attention, and it has everything to do with how many points are actually ending up on the scoreboard in their games. The under has cashed in 6 of the Trail Blazers' last 7 contests. That's not some random statistical hiccup or a quirky sample. That's a sustained pattern rooted in how this team is actually playing basketball right now. Look at the recent home results and the picture becomes crystal clear. Portland beat the Clippers 116-97, a combined 213. Before that, they topped New Orleans at home 118-106, totaling 224. The Washington game finished 123-88, combining for just 211. And the Dallas home game, Portland lost that 193-100, a paltry 193 combined. Game after game, the scoring environment at the Moda Center has been quietly suffocated. Donovan Clingan's presence in the paint is a huge reason why, and it goes way beyond the blocks that show up in the box score. He's been swatting 2.3 shots per game over the last 20 contests, and that level of rim protection changes the geometry of how opponents approach the basket entirely. Teams see him camped in the lane, a 7'2" wall, and they settle for contested jumpers and awkward floaters instead of attacking the rim. That naturally leads to lower shooting percentages and fewer easy buckets, which is exactly the environment that pushes games toward the under. Now consider what Sacramento brings to the table offensively, or more accurately, what they don't. The Kings rank dead last in the NBA with just 10.3 three-pointers made per game. They're shooting 34.1% from deep, which is 29th in the league. That means they aren't a team that's going to light it up from the perimeter and inflate the score in a hurry. Their opponents are actually draining 3.5 more threes per game than they are, which creates a constant scoring imbalance that Sacramento simply can't overcome with volume. When a team can't shoot from outside and they're simultaneously missing their best playmakers and shot creators, the offensive well just runs dry. Without Sabonis orchestrating the half-court offense, without LaVine creating his own looks in isolation, and without Monk's instant energy off the bench, this Sacramento attack is running on fumes. Maxime Reynaud and Precious Achiuwa have been solid in their expanded roles, no doubt about it, but both guys score most of their points around the basket. That style of play doesn't lend itself to high-scoring affairs, especially when you're running headfirst into a rim protector like Klingon who makes life miserable for anyone trying to operate in the paint. The head-to-head trend makes this even more convincing. The under has hit in 6 of Portland's last 8 games against Sacramento. Zoom out a bit further and the under has also connected in 5 of Portland's last 6 games against Western Conference opponents. Here's the thing, Portland has postseason stakes on the line tonight, and teams in that position tend to prioritize defensive effort and disciplined execution over trying to run up the score. Tyago Splitter has built this group around defensive identity and half-court discipline all season long, and that approach naturally drags the pace down to a crawl. Sacramento, with their skeleton crew roster and zero incentive to push tempo, isn't going to turn this into a track meet. They're far more likely to go through possessions, let the clock wind down, and drift toward the finish line. When you've got a defensively intense home team guarding its postseason future against a depleted, directionless opponent that can't shoot from the outside and is missing nearly half its rotation, the scoring environment shrinks from both ends of the floor. Everything about this matchup points in one direction. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Memphis Grizzlies versus Houston Rockets. Look, I know what you're thinking when you glance at this matchup on the final day of the regular season. Memphis at 25-56 going into Houston at 51-30, and your first instinct is to just hammer the home favorites and move on with your life. I get it, but sometimes the most obvious plays are exactly the ones that eat your bankroll alive, and this feels like one of those sneaky spots where the underdog has more going for it than the surface tells you. Let me explain why. Houston is locked into the 5th seed in the Western Conference, and that is not speculation. That is confirmed after their loss to Minnesota on Friday night. They cannot climb to the 4th seed because the Lakers own the tiebreaker from their back-to-back wins in Houston during March. So what exactly is Ime Udoka's motivation here? Does he really want Kevin Durant logging heavy minutes in a game that literally means nothing for seeding just 6 days before the playoffs begin on April 18th? Durant played 39 minutes against Minnesota, dropped 33 points, and looked every bit of his 37 years doing it in a game they still lost. Every minute he's on the floor Sunday night is a minute he could tweak something, and Houston cannot afford that heading into a first-round series against either the Lakers or the Nuggets. You have to wonder if guys like Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr. get limited run or sit entirely, because there is genuinely zero incentive for the Rockets to go all out in this one. And here's where the numbers start screaming at you. Houston is 35-46 against the spread this season, which is honestly laughable for a team with their win total. Since January 11th, they are 3-8 against the spread as a double-digit favorite. Let that sink in for a second, because that is not a fluke over a 2-game sample. That is an extended stretch of failing to cover large numbers. Their last 7 games against Southwest Division opponents have produced a 1-6 mark against the number. Memphis, meanwhile, has covered in 6 of their last 7 road games against Western Conference opponents. Now I'm not going to sit here and tell you Memphis is a good basketball team, because they aren't. They've lost 12 of their last 13 and the injuries are absolutely devastating, with Ja Morant, Zach Edey, Santi Aldama, Jalen Wells, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Brandon Clark all done for the year. But here's the thing about the season finale for a team that is already eliminated and building for the future. These young guys are playing audition basketball. Jamai Mashak just posted a triple-double against Utah with 13 points, 15 rebounds, and 14 assists over 48 minutes. Rayan Rupert went for 16 and 12 in that same game. Derek Whitehead made his first career start and looked comfortable. Coach Tuomas Isolo has nothing to lose, and his young players have everything to prove. Guys like Mashak, Rupert, Hendricks, and Coward are fighting for roster spots and rotation minutes next season, and that kind of desperation doesn't show up in the box score predictions. You combine a Houston team with no reason to push, starters who might be in bubble wrap, and an against-the-spread record that practically begs you to fade them as big favorites, with a Memphis squad full of hungry kids playing free and loose in a meaningless game where the pressure is entirely off their shoulders, and you get a recipe for a cover. The market has gotten wise to Houston's against-the-spread woes all season, but it keeps setting these massive lines, and the Rockets keep failing to cash them. As our first pick for this matchup, the Memphis Grizzlies to cover the spread as underdogs is our full-game side pick. Memphis has been hemorrhaging points lately, giving up an average of 131.1 per game over their last 10 outings, which is the kind of defensive performance that makes you wonder if they even run plays on that end of the floor. The Grizzlies are allowing opponents to shoot north of 48% from the field this season, ranking 26th in the league, and their opponent rebounding numbers are ugly too, surrendering nearly 47 boards per contest. When a team can't get stops and can't control the glass, points just keep coming in waves. Houston, on the other hand, has been absolutely cooking offensively. The Rockets have ranked third in the entire league in offensive rating since March 26th, and they've averaged 121.2 points per game over their last 10. Reed Shepherd has been launching and connecting from deep at 2.8 three-pointers per game, and the spacing around Durant and Sengun has created one of the more efficient half-court attacks in the Western Conference. Even in their loss to Minnesota on Friday, both teams combined for 268 points. That wasn't a defensive slugfest, it was a track meet. And the trends back this up in a serious way. 4 of Houston's last 5 meetings with Memphis have gone over the projected points line. 7 of the Rockets' last 8 games played in April have cleared it. 5 of Memphis's own last 7 April contests have sailed over as well. There's something about late-season basketball when the intensity drops on one side and the pace picks up on the other that just generates offense. Houston's defense has been elite for most of the year, holding opponents to 110.1 points per game, which ranks 5th in the NBA. But think about the context of this game. If starters get pulled early or play limited minutes, the backups who come in are not the guys who built that defensive reputation. You could easily see a scenario where the second and third stringers for Houston play a more open, less disciplined style that lets Memphis hang around and put up points. And Memphis, for all their struggles, still plays at a top 10 pace in the league, ranked 7th at 101.1 possessions per game. These young Grizzlies aren't slowing it down and grinding out possessions. They're pushing it, firing threes, and playing with the kind of reckless energy that generates possessions on both ends. The Grizzlies actually connect on 14 triples per game, which is 12th in the entire NBA. So even with a decimated roster, these guys can fill it up from deep on any given night. You put a fast-paced Memphis team that can't play defense against a Houston team that scores in bunches, and the math points one direction. Whether Houston plays its starters for 25 minutes or 35 minutes, the offensive firepower on their side alone could push this thing toward the number, and Memphis's inability to get stops on the other end just adds fuel. Both teams topped 100 in their March 28th meeting, which Houston won 119-109, and that was 228 combined, with Memphis actually being a bit more intact than they are now. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Phoenix Suns versus Oklahoma City Thunder. Something feels off about this regular season finale between the Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder. On paper, you see a 64-17 juggernaut hosting a 44-37 team that's limping into the play-in tournament, and your first instinct is to chalk this one up as an easy Thunder blowout. I get it. Oklahoma City is the defending NBA champion. They just clinched the #1 overall seed in the Western Conference for the 3rd consecutive season, and they've been one of the most dominant forces we've seen in the league in years. But here's the thing, context doesn't care about your season-long resume. This game on Sunday night at Paycom Center isn't really a basketball game in the traditional sense. It's a preservation exercise. It's two franchises playing chess with the calendar, not with each other. Mark Daigneault already told us exactly what the Thunder's approach would be when he said the plan for Sunday's game would mirror what we saw Friday night against Denver. And what happened Friday night against Denver? Oklahoma City sat 4 starters and several key rotation players, then lost by 20 points, 127-107. That wasn't a competitive effort, it was a white flag wrapped in injury management language. When you look at the Thunder's Friday injury report, it read like a who's who of their championship core. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sat with oblique injury management. Chet Holmgren was listed with back spasms. Jalen Williams was out for hamstring injury management. Isaiah Hartenstein missed with a solace issue. Alex Caruso got a straight rest designation. Cason Wallace, Ajay Mitchell, Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams, Thomas Sorber, all out. 10 players on the injury report. That's not an injury report, that's a vacation itinerary. And Daigneault has told us Sunday will look the same. So who actually played for Oklahoma City on Friday? Brandon Carlson came off the bench and posted 23 points and 12 rebounds. Kenrich Williams logged 15 points and 12 rebounds. Jared McCain put up 15 points. Nikola Topic finished with 14 points and 11 assists, though he also committed 8 turnovers. These are the guys you're trusting to cover a spread against a team that actually has something to play for. The Suns are locked into the 7th seed and they'll host a play-in tournament game on Tuesday against either the Clippers or Trail Blazers. They're also dealing with injuries, sure. Grayson Allen is confirmed out with a left hamstring injury he sustained during Friday's loss to the Lakers. Devin Booker was rested Friday for ankle management, and his status for Sunday remains up in the air. Jalen Green tweaked his right knee against the Mavericks on April 8th, but coach Jordan Ott has clarified that the injury isn't as serious as feared and Green is expected back for the play-in. But here's where the Suns have an edge that nobody's really talking about. Even with their own players resting, Phoenix has a real incentive to get some guys going before Tuesday's elimination game. Ott said it himself before Friday's contest. The plan was always to try to find a little rhythm for these guys. Haywood Highsmith hasn't played since mid-March and the Suns want to get him some game reps on Sunday. Colin Gillespie, who's been putting up 12.7 points per game and knocking down 2.9 threes a night, 13th in the entire NBA, is the kind of player who benefits from staying in rhythm before a do-or-die scenario. Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, Oso Ighodaro, Mark Williams, these guys played Friday against the Lakers and they'll likely get run again. You're essentially looking at a Phoenix rotation that has a tangible reason to compete against a Thunder rotation that's been explicitly designed to avoid competition. Oklahoma City's bench unit just lost by 20 to Denver's bench unit on Friday. The Thunder are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 home games. On the season, Oklahoma City is actually below .500 against the spread at 39-42. When they've been favored by a decent margin this year, they're 35-36 against the number. That's not a team that consistently buries opponents by the margins the odds makers expect. And when you factor in that the Suns have been resilient as underdogs all year, going 11-4 against the spread in their last 15 games as a dog, you start to see a picture forming. Phoenix plays at one of the slowest paces in the NBA, ranking 27th at 97 possessions per game, and that style naturally keeps games tighter. They don't let contests spiral out of control because they don't give opponents extra possessions to run away with. Their defense has quietly been solid all season, ranking 6th in opponent scoring at 111.2 points allowed per game. That defensive identity doesn't just disappear because a few starters sit. The head-to-head history is ugly for Phoenix, I won't sugarcoat it. Oklahoma City has won 9 of the last 10 meetings, including a 136-109 win at Phoenix and a 138-89 demolition at Paycom Center. But those games featured the full-strength Thunder, the version with their M5P, their all-stars, and their defensive monsters wreaking havoc. That's not the team showing up Sunday night. Sunday night's Thunder will be led by guys like Topic, Carlson, and McCain, talented young players, but not the squad that terrorized the league for 64 wins. Phoenix doesn't need to win this game outright. They just need to keep it close, and when the opposition is voluntarily benching its entire identity, keeping it close becomes a whole lot more realistic. As our first pick for this matchup, the Phoenix Suns to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both of these coaching staffs have made it abundantly clear through their actions over the last 48 hours that protecting bodies is the priority heading into Sunday's finale. When you strip away the star power from both sides, you're left with reserve units and fringe rotation players logging heavy minutes in a game that neither team desperately needs to win. That reality doesn't exactly scream offensive fireworks. Phoenix already plays at a snail's pace by NBA standards. Their 97 possessions per game ranks 27th in the league, and that tempo isn't some accident. It's baked into how Jordan Ott wants his team to operate. Fewer possessions means fewer opportunities for points on both ends, and that math doesn't change just because different names are on the floor. If anything, it gets more pronounced when you're running lineups full of players who aren't accustomed to initiating offense or creating shots in the half-court. Bench guys don't push the pace the way starters do. They tend to be more deliberate, more cautious, and frankly, less efficient. We saw exactly what happens when the Thunder roll out their deep reserves on Friday against Denver. Oklahoma City scored 107 points, which sounds fine until you realize that's almost 12 points below their season average of 119.2. And that was against a Nuggets team that was also sitting at stars. When both teams are in glorified scrimmage mode, the offensive output tends to crater because there's no alpha scorer demanding the ball, creating mismatches, and bending the defense. You're watching guys like Topic commit 8 turnovers while trying to figure out the flow, which is exactly what you'd expect from a 20-year-old point guard getting thrown into extended action without his usual supporting cast. The Suns scored just 73 points against the Lakers on Friday. 73. Now, the Lakers were actually trying to win that game for playoff seeding purposes, so it's not a perfect comparison, but that number tells you how little offensive juice Phoenix had without Booker in the lineup. Brooks led the team with 12 points. O'Neal added 11. Agudero chipped in 8. That's your top 3 scorers combining for 31 points. Even if Phoenix's effort level ticks up on Sunday with the play-in looming, the personnel available to them doesn't suggest some sudden offensive explosion. Phoenix's opponents have scored only 111.2 points per game against them this season, 6th best in the entire league. That defensive backbone holds up even when the lineup isn't at full strength because the principles stay the same, the pace stays controlled, and the possessions stay limited. Meanwhile, the Thunder's defense is the best in basketball at 107.5 points allowed per game. But here's the catch, that number was built by their starters. The reserves who'll be on the floor Sunday don't carry that same suffocating identity. They might be decent defensively, but they also won't generate the transition opportunities that Oklahoma City starters create through their aggressive ball pressure and turnovers. Fewer steals means fewer fast break points, which means a more half-court oriented, grinding game. The under has hit in 7 of the Suns' last 10 games as an underdog in this range. The under is 7-2 in Phoenix's last 9 Sunday games. When you combine the Suns' naturally slow pace with the likelihood of 2 depleted rosters stumbling through a meaningless finale, the scoring environment just doesn't set up for a high-output affair. This has all the ingredients of a sloppy, disjointed contest where neither team has the firepower or the motivation to push the score into uncomfortable territory. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.